Now hold on, because something about this is getting out of control in a way that's hard to ignore. Offset just got out of the hospital, and instead of things calming down, everything around him is getting louder, messier, and way more public than it should be. And it doesn't stop there. You've got reports of him feeding information to media outlets, his name tied to casino debt rumors, and even accusations coming from Lil Tjay calling him out in a way that hits different. That's not just noise, that's pressure building from multiple directions at once. And here's the part that doesn't sit right. None of this feels random. The timing, the exposure, the way everything keeps surfacing one after the other, it starts to look like something is slipping behind the scenes. Because let's be real, when someone's situation is this public, this chaotic, and this consistent, it usually points to something deeper than just bad luck. It starts looking like loss of control, and once control starts slipping, everything else tends to follow. Especially when you factor in everything already going on with Cardi B, and how that situation keeps overlapping with what he's dealing with right now. Now it's not just separate problems, it's one situation bleeding into another, and that's where it gets heavy. Because when personal issues, public exposure, and outside pressure all start stacking at the same time, things don't stay stable for long. And once it reaches that point, it doesn't slow down, it escalates. And that's exactly where this situation is heading next. And that's where this starts to get misunderstood. Most people see the headlines and think it's just another messy cycle, another celebrity going through public issues. But that reading is too surface level for what's actually happening here. Now hold on, because when you slow it down, this doesn't look like random chaos. It looks like a pattern forming. Every situation tied to Offset lately comes with tension, exposure, and something that raises more questions than it answers. That's not normal at this level. Controversy usually comes in waves, then it cools off. This isn't cooling off, it's stacking. And when things keep stacking without a break, it stops looking like bad timing and starts feeling like something underneath is off. And here's the part that really shifts it. When people heard about the hospital, the expectation was that everything would slow down, that there would be a reset, some space, maybe even a moment of reflection. But the opposite happened. More stories surfaced, more accusations came out, more attention followed him instead of fading away. That's not how situations like this usually play out, and that's where it changes. Because now it's not just about what's happening, it's about why it keeps happening back to back like this. And once you start asking that question, the situation stops feeling separate and starts feeling connected. Because when public pressure, personal issues, and outside voices all start hitting at once, it creates something much harder to control. And once it reaches that point, it doesn't stay stable, it starts building into something bigger. And once it starts building into something bigger, that's when the real problem begins to show itself. Because this didn't just start with the hospital or the headlines, this has been developing, and now it's reaching a point where it's spilling into everything at once. Now hold on, because when you look at the pattern, it starts making more sense. There have already been rumors about gambling, talk of money moving in the wrong direction, and questions about what's really going on behind the scenes with Offset. Then you add in the public moments, the way information keeps getting out, and the fact that people like Lil Tjay are now speaking on it openly, and it stops being quiet speculation. It becomes pressure, and that's where it gets serious. Because when money, reputation, and public image all start tightening at the same time, people don't move carefully, they react. And those reactions usually reveal how deep the problem actually goes. At the same time, none of this is happening in isolation. Everything connected to Cardi B is still part of the picture, whether directly or indirectly. And that overlap adds another layer. Because now you're not just dealing with one issue, you're dealing with multiple situations colliding. And when that happens, things don't stay contained. They spread. And once they spread, the pressure increases faster than it can be managed. That's what turns this from a situation into a problem. Because now it's not just about what's happening, it's about what it's creating. And once it starts creating consequences, that's when everything begins to escalate.
Offset is on the road to recovery. The rapper returned to the stage for his first performance less than a week after he was shot outside the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Hollywood, Florida. Offset performed at the University of Arkansas April 11th for the school's annual Row Fest, hours after he was released from the hospital.
Because at this point, it's not just background noise anymore, it's turning into real moments that people can point to. Now hold on, because this is where it gets messy in a different way. You've got Lil Tjay publicly calling out Offset, throwing around accusations that hit directly at credibility. And that kind of call-out doesn't stay small. Once it's out there, it spreads fast, and it sticks. Because now it's not just rumors, it's another voice adding to the narrative. And at the same time, you've got everything else happening around him not slowing down. The hospital situation, the media exposure, the constant headlines, all of it stacking on top of each other. And when things stack like that, they don't balance out, they collapse inward. That's where the pressure really starts showing. Because now it's not just about what actually happened, it's about how it's being seen from the outside, and perception moves faster than facts. Every accusation gets amplified, every detail gets picked apart, and every move starts carrying more weight than it normally would. And here's the part that hits. There's no clear pause, no reset, no moment where everything slows down. It just keeps going. And when a situation keeps moving like that without control, it starts pulling everything else into it. And once it reaches that level, it doesn't stay contained to one moment, it starts affecting the bigger picture. And that's when the consequences stop being temporary and start becoming something much harder to ignore. Because now it's not just about isolated moments, it's about how everything is being seen as a whole. Now hold on, because this is where the shift really hits. The image around Offset is changing in real time. This isn't being read as a few bad situations anymore, it's being read as instability. And that's a completely different narrative, because once people start attaching that label to you, every move you make gets filtered through it. Every headline, every appearance, every reaction starts reinforcing the same idea. And that's hard to break. And let's be real, when accusations, public moments, and financial rumors all start overlapping, people don't separate them, they combine them. That's how perception works. And once that perception locks in, it spreads fast. At the same time, this doesn't exist in a vacuum. Everything connected to Cardi B is still part of the conversation, and that contrast only makes things look worse. Because while one side looks unstable, the other looks like it's moving forward, and that difference becomes part of the narrative too. And here's the part that really lands. This kind of shift doesn't just affect public opinion, it affects opportunities, relationships, and how people around you move. Because once the image changes, the energy around you changes with it. And when that happens, support doesn't stay the same. It starts to fade. And once that support starts fading, that's when everything begins to shift in a way that's much harder to control. And once that support starts fading, that's when everything begins to shift in a way that's much harder to control. Because this is the part people don't see at first. It's not loud, it's quiet. Now hold on, because this is where it really starts hitting behind the scenes. The same people who were once visible, supportive, and present around Offset start moving differently. Not all at once, but gradually. Calls get shorter, appearances become less frequent, and the energy that used to feel solid starts feeling uncertain. That's not random. That's distance forming in real time. And when that happens, it changes everything. Because now it's not just the public reacting, it's the circle around him adjusting too. And that shift carries weight. At the same time, the public tone keeps changing. What started as curiosity turns into criticism, and that criticism turns into judgment. And once that switch happens, it spreads fast. Because people follow narratives, not details. And right now, the narrative isn't in his favor. And here's where it gets heavier. There's still no strong counter to any of this. No clear pushback, no moment that resets the conversation, nothing that pulls things back into balance. And when silence meets pressure like this, people don't pause, they assume. And those assumptions only push the situation further. That's what makes this stage different. It's not just about what's happening, it's about how everything around it is reacting. And once both the public and the people close to you start pulling back at the same time, the situation becomes harder to stabilize. And when that stability is gone, that's when the next layer starts revealing it.
And though he arrived on stage in a wheelchair, as seen in a clip he shared to Instagram April 12th, the 34-year-old didn't let his injury keep him down. After being wheeled to center stage, he stood up and went on to perform many of his hit songs.
And when that stability is gone, that's when the next layer starts revealing itself. Because once the circle starts pulling back, what fills that space is information coming from inside. Now hold on, because this is where it gets uncomfortable. The way details keep surfacing, the way stories keep reaching the public, it doesn't feel accidental anymore. It feels like someone close to the situation is no longer keeping things contained. And that changes everything. Because when information starts leaking from the inside, it means the protection around you is weakening. And once that protection weakens, everything becomes exposed. That's not just pressure, that's vulnerability. At the same time, the accusations from voices like Lil Tjay only add to that exposure. Because now it's not just private issues becoming public, it's public figures reinforcing the narrative. And once that happens, it becomes harder to control how the story is told. And here's the part that really hits. There's no strong response pushing back against any of this. No clear denial, no attempt to redirect, nothing that changes the direction of the conversation. And when silence meets exposure, people don't hesitate, they start connecting dots. Whether those connections are accurate or not doesn't even matter at that point. The narrative starts building on its own. And once it starts building like that, it doesn't stay contained to one situation. It spreads into everything connected to it. And when it spreads that far, it stops being something you can manage directly. It becomes something much bigger. And once it becomes something bigger, that's when it moves beyond just one person and starts pulling in the entire system around it. Because at this point, it's not just about Offset anymore. It's about how everything connected to him reacts. Now hold on, because this is where it really levels up. The story is no longer just a situation, it's a narrative spreading across platforms, media, and conversations all at once. And every time it spreads, it picks up something new. Old rumors get revisited, past situations get brought back up, and everything starts getting reanalyzed under a different lens. That's how one situation turns into a full storyline. At the same time, the industry starts adjusting. Because when something like this becomes public at this level, people connected to it start thinking differently. Collaborations go quiet, support becomes less visible, and distance becomes noticeable even if no one says it out loud. And let's be real, nobody wants to be tied to something that feels unstable. That's just how it works. And that creates another level of pressure, because now it's not just about personal issues or public opinion, it's about how the entire system responds. And once that system starts pulling back, it creates a ripple effect that touches everything connected to it. And when it reaches that point, it stops being something you can contain, because now it's moving through perception at scale. And once it moves like that, controlling it becomes almost impossible. And when control feels out of reach, that's when the situation starts feeling like there's no clear way out.
Also posting some pictures of his outfit for the occasion, he captioned the series alongside a red heart, quote, "Real love." Offset, who shares kids' culture, wave, and blossom with ex-Cardi B as well as 3 other kids from previous relationships, was hospitalized April 6 for what Seminole County police described to TMZ as non-life-threatening injuries.
And when control starts feeling out of reach, that's when it begins to feel like there's no clear way out. Because at this stage, every move starts working against you. Now hold on, because this is where the pressure really locks in. Anything Offset does now becomes part of the narrative whether he wants it to or not. If he speaks, people question the motive. If he stays quiet, people assume the worst. There's no neutral position left, and that's what makes this moment different. It's not just about managing one situation, it's about dealing with everything at once. The accusations, the exposure, the public reaction, all of it stacking together. And when everything stacks like that, you can't isolate one problem and fix it. It doesn't work like that anymore. At the same time, there's still no clear support stepping in to shift the narrative. No strong ally, no visible defense, nothing that slows the momentum down. And when nothing interrupts that momentum, it keeps moving in the same direction. And right now, that direction isn't in his favor. And here's the part that hits. Every delay makes it heavier. Every moment without control adds more pressure. And once it reaches that level, it starts feeling locked in, like the situation is moving forward on its own. And when it feels like that, the next move usually isn't calculated, it's reactive. And that's where things tend to get even more unpredictable. And when things start getting unpredictable, that's when the moves stop looking calculated and start looking desperate. Because at this point, it's not about strategy anymore. It's about trying to regain control before everything slips further. Now hold on, because this is where the intent starts showing. The way information keeps surfacing, the way moments keep becoming public, it doesn't feel contained. It feels like something is being pushed out. And when that happens, it raises a different question. Is this reaction, or is it a move? Because when someone feels like they're losing control, attention can start to feel like the only way to shift things back. But here's the problem. When you try to force attention in a situation that's already unstable, it usually backfires. Instead of regaining control, it amplifies everything that's already working against you. And that's exactly what this starts to look like. Because now every action gets picked apart even more. Every detail gets questioned, and instead of slowing things down, it speeds everything up. At the same time, there's still no clear counterbalance to any of this. No strong response, no shift in direction, nothing that changes how this is being seen. And when there's no interruption, the narrative keeps building on its own. And that's what makes this stage dangerous. Because now it's not just about reacting, it's about reacting in a way that might actually make things worse. And once it reaches that point, that's when everything starts coming apart at the same time. And when everything starts coming apart at the same time, that's when you hit the point where it's no longer manageable. Because now it's not one issue, it's everything hitting at once. Now hold on, because this is where it really lands. The image, the reputation, and the personal situation are all taking impact at the same time. This is Offset, someone who once moved with confidence and control, now being seen through a completely different lens. Not steady, not calculated, but reactive. And that shift is heavy, because once people start seeing you that way, every move you make reinforces it. The narrative has already changed. This is no longer about success or momentum, it's about instability. And once that label sticks, it's hard to shake. At the same time, everything connected to Cardi B still sits in the background, adding contrast to what's happening now, and that contrast only makes the situation look worse.
Following his release from the hospital, Offset expressed his gratitude for the support he's received, saying in an Instagram post April 10th, quote, "Thank you to everyone who's checked in on me and showed me love. I'm good, but I'm planning to be better."
Because while one side looks like it's moving forward, the other looks like it's losing control. And here's the part that hits the hardest. This isn't just one mistake. This is multiple layers collapsing together. The accusations, the exposure, the public reaction, the silence, all of it stacking at once. And when everything stacks like that, it creates a full collapse moment. Not temporary, not something easy to fix, but something that changes how everything is seen moving forward. And once it reaches that point, it's no longer about whether things went wrong. It's about how much of it can actually be recovered. And when it gets to that stage, what's left isn't control, it's uncertainty. And when everything turns into uncertainty, that's when the situation stops having a clear ending. Because at this point, there's no clean way to tie this together or undo what's already been set in motion. What you're looking at now is something still unfolding, still shifting, and still being shaped in real time. Now hold on, because this is where it really comes down to two possibilities. On one side, this could be exactly what it looks like. A situation that spiraled, driven by pressure, bad decisions, and everything catching up at once. And if that's the case, then the outcome depends on whether Offset can actually regain control of what's already slipping. But on the other side, there's still that question that hasn't gone away. Why does everything keep becoming public? Why does every situation keep surfacing instead of staying contained? Because if any part of this is intentional, if any part of this is a move to shift perception or force attention, then everything that follows depends on whether that strategy actually works. And right now, it doesn't look like it is. Because the pressure hasn't slowed down, the narrative hasn't shifted, and nothing has been pulled back under control. And that's what makes this moment different. Because now it's not just about what already happened, it's about what happens next. Whether this is the point where things finally turn around, or the moment where everything keeps going in the same direction. And once it reaches that point, there's no way to ignore it anymore.